Hello, listeners, and welcome to another episode of Gathered Glow. Thanks, as always, for being here. I think it is so special this time that we have together. My goal for Gathered Glow is to help people share ways that we can all raise the standard, live a little bit more aligned without losing ourselves. And I care so deeply about this because I feel like in leadership, we have gotten to a point where it's been a lot about building capabilities and skills that help you lead others. And I think sometimes it loses sight of the leader themselves, who they are, their foundation, what they need. And I think that can be a lot of weight to navigate. And so that's why I founded Gathered Glow. So thanks for being here with me. I am Jackie Price. My heart goes into what I do here and what I share. And I do this for people like you. So I appreciate you tuning in. Today, as always, and in our podcast, this is my heart to heart. I am coming to you from Japan for the next few weeks. And it got me thinking about a few things. And I feel like I wanted to really share that. Okay, so as I'm traveling around Japan, I'm noticing cultural differences. I'm noticing and mannerisms and etiquette and just kind of overall volume level differences. And it got me thinking a lot around how I have had conversations with amazing people who have shared very intimately that, I think what has really held them back from being their best and brightest and what they do and their gifts and strengths has been the voice of feedback that they receive from someone else telling them that they're too much, too loud, too emotional, too direct, too fierce, too honest, too passionate, too aggressive, too passive. And I got a lot to say on this subject, as always. But I really felt so taken back because if anyone was to travel, maybe, without being aware to maybe another culture, based on their own framework, they would probably say that you need to change and be more like XYZ. And I think that happens in leadership sometimes. You may get so caught up in your own framework that you forget that someone else can be different entirely from you and that can be a strength. So I wanted to dive a little bit into this. And I want to talk about it in two folds. One, I want to talk to you if you've been told that you're ever too much. We're going to have a chat. And on the other side of this, I want to address if you are a leader who's ever told someone this. I will go through and share a much more effective way to communicate that is more likely to get the intended response that you're hoping for. And so my goal in talking about this is, one, I'm going to start with you. If you've ever been told that you are too much, I want you to know that there's no possible way for anyone at all other than you to know that factually. Your choice to receive it is up to you. But anyone else only ever sees a slice of you. And to make a statement about the whole when no one can know the whole except you is misguided even if it came from a good place. So, I know that in my personal experience and through my coaching, I've heard a lot of people say, I'm to this, I'm to that. And what's really funny is as I start digging in, I'm like, tell me, what else have you gotten to what? A lot of times the list that they create contradicts. If there is a common theme, sometimes they say, let's look at the theme. People from different places and different times has told you the same information. Let's connect the dots here. That might be insightful to know. Saying it was too much was never the right way to phrase, but there may be information there that you need to refine without reducing who you are and your strengths and your abilities and how you show up and the personality that makes you you and your characteristics and qualities that are so unique to who you are. That does not mean that they don't need to be refined sometimes, but it does mean that somebody has maybe overlooked how great they are as well. And it might not have ever been a you thing. First of all, you need to discern, should you even receive that feedback? Does it belong to you? Or is it because they don't have the ability to hold their own truth, to hold an expansive version of what they think something should look like or be? And that may have nothing to do with you as a leader or you as an individual. Because feedback like this doesn't just come in leadership, right? In life and relationships and friendships, you may be told you're too loud. Sometimes you need too much communication. In many ways. But no one knows a two other than you. So I would say discern. Discern, what are the common threads here? Was this person sharing something with me that directly connects to me and I should consider from a reflective point, not from a place of reaction or fire, but from a place of like, let me just observe. Was there some truth in what they said? Even if how they said it was very poor. I think the other question to ask yourself is, if there is some truth, what do I refine without reducing who I am? And then from there, I would recommend listing out all of the twos that you've ever received and writing out who said it to you, writing out what it means to you. Because at a certain point, regardless, I think you have to let it go. If you've embraced the feedback, if you've made it part of you, then it's already connected. You no longer need to hold it. What happens more often than not is I see high performing individuals overcorrect from a feedback that was not specific, overcorrect and mute themselves to a point of losing their edge. And sometimes that feedback is just given to you because the person who shared it with you does not know how to adequately explore your talents in a way that can yield the results that they're hoping for. So they try to fit you and conform into a norm that they're comfortable with because it would require them to expand in order to understand how to properly navigate your talents. So, sitting with this, I think if you've been told you're too much, sometimes they're also pinpointing your strengths and talents. You might need to recalibrate. You could be a little spicy in times where like it doesn't require that much spice, but you never want to lose it. And then I promised on the flip side to talk about if you are a leader who has someone that maybe you are feeling, how do I express this in any other way than saying you are too intense? I would say that you need to be aware that as a leader, your job is to enhance their performance, to align expectations, to create clarity, and to hold the standard, which you will have to give feedback and have some tough conversations. Your job is not to dictate who they are. You may need to share that there's standards to uphold, that there are expectations that you have, but to say a statement like you are to anything is creating a declaration over a person that you do not have the rights to do. And oftentimes, you can really corrode and erode trust by doing that. Certain phrases make defenses go up. And once that defense starts going up and is triggered, it's much harder to connect with a person in a positive way that will yield the result that you're hoping for. So, if there is a time where feedback is needed, which there is, and maybe you observed something that was out of the bounds that you felt like was professional or acceptable, it is important that you give them feedback. But I recommend taking an approach where your goal is to hold up a mirror to them. So that means you have to be very, very clear. It's not your opinion, it's you being trying to be as clear so that they can see it themselves, so that they see what needs to change and navigate accordingly. And in this case, I would follow the mirror method, which the mirror method is describing the moment that the action, behavior occurred. When was it? When, where, what did you see? What did you hear? And then the action and behavior that you observed. This is not an opinion. It is not you're too much. It's not you were too intense. This is what you actually observed. This is the information that is key to unlocking it. You may have still some pushback. You may still have someone who's a bit reactive or not willing to hear you out, but it is important that you do not start with your opinion. And then moving into how did this impact the individual, the interaction, the circumstance? Because that's really where you might share how you feel, what you observed. And this should never be a blanketed statement about a person because people are way more complex with vast amount of dimensions to make blanketed statements. I know we make generalizations because that's how we communicate. It makes things a little easier, and I think most of the time we can understand that they're generalizations and not always going to apply. But when you're giving feedback to a person on a characteristic that clearly is defining to them, is deep in who they are and how they lead and live, and a quality that is rooted in them, you want to be aware of what you are saying and the impact that your words have. Because it matters. It matters not just on the level of I want them to perform differently. Your words sometimes carry way beyond that interaction. And sometimes I've seen extremely capable, responsible, wonderful people not performing to the best of their abilities because they have heard feedback and they overcorrected to a point that the emotional weight that they carried from that feedback was crippling their performance. I'm not saying that that's always the case, but I just want to say that the phrase that feedback is a gift is true sometimes, but more often than not, it is not always a gift that is needed if it's not packaged in a productive way that the individual can actually use. If you are not going to actually coach them through it and come up with a plan in place to have an open conversation that builds trust and awareness, you may need to take a moment and reflect yourself before going into that conversation. Another key is that timeliness is important. So, waiting until a performance review to give feedback of saying, hey, you really have been a bit abrasive with clients is really going to throw someone off. Being as timely within 24 to 48 hours to where it's fresh and you can hold up that mirror. Otherwise, with our memory and retention, you're holding up a mirror that's a little foggy, that you might not remember accurately and they might not. So the closer in time, the more impactful. And I know that we all realize that we will have to give some tough and difficult conversations as a leader. But I want you to know that just because you have to have a difficult conversation does not mean that it should be a shift in a person's self-esteem of who they are. And there's some give and take to this on both sides. An openness, a receptiveness to feedback, and a mindfulness and an awareness of what that feedback is and how you are giving it. But if you have ever said that somebody is too much, I'm just going to go ahead and say that feedback probably did not land extremely well. And if you've ever been told that you are too anything, I want to first say I don't believe it. You may need to refine without reducing you and why that makes you you, but you may need to refine. But you are complex. You are not one thing. I hope that you listen and take that information in and utilize it. Sometimes it is a gift. Sometimes it is not one that you need to keep. Take what you can from it and leave the rest. Whether this feedback has come from someone in your work life, maybe a family member, a friend, does not always mean that it needs to define you. Thank you all for listening to this episode of Gathered Glow and for tuning in. And as always, I hope you have an amazing week. Like, subscribe, share with a friend, and I will see you next week. Keep shining.